In this episode of We Do a Little, we shook things up a bit and hosted a larger roundtable with some of our badass friends at Art Basel. We vibed with Jay Toups, Meg Batson, Joelle LB, Natasha Chomko, aka Postwook, and Sneakerdad, diving deep on topics such as picking a Genesis piece, how to collect collectors, time allocation during a bear market, and so much more. As always, this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Andy, T's, and guests may own NFTs discussed.
This is Andy.
Yeah, I'm Reeves.
Today, we are here with a big group of friends, mostly photographers, photography collectors, vibers. We are going to do a little live Twitter space / photography roundtable where we kind of just go with the flow and see where it takes us. It's going to be really unstructured and it's going to be really interesting. To start off, I'm just going to hand the mic and let people introduce themselves rather than me starting off introducing everybody. So starting off, I'm just going to hand the mic to Sneakerdad.
Yeah. What's up? Sneakerdad, Spencer. Been in the space for a couple years, collector and photographer.
Hello, I'm Jay. I am an adventure photographer. I live in a fire truck and travel around the country with my wife and climb mountains for a living. So, yeah.
Sounds way cooler.
I'm Meg. I'm a photographer. I photograph beautiful women for a living. I take them to tropical places. We have a lot of fun with it. I do nudes that I feel like empower them, and yeah, that's me. I like the ocean. I like turtles.
Hi, I'm Joelle. I am a landscape photographer from the Canadian Rockies. I shoot minimalist landscape and astrophotography, and I like cold, unlike Meg here.
Hey, I'm Natasha. On the internet, I go by Postwook. I'm a digital collage artist. I guess you could call me a photographer. I do shoot. I mostly make surrealist landscapes, lots of moons, stars, mountains, some oceans, you know, the whole vibes based on like my experiences and emotions. So that's me.
Boom. That's a great way to start it off. So first off, disclosure, I own art from every artist here. If people want to know, I'm going to put that out there. I have a couple interesting things to go with, and I think a good place to start is picking a Genesis piece. I feel like the start of the conversation, starting with the Genesis, is interesting. I kind of wanted to get your perspectives on, like, how did you pick your Genesis piece? And, you know, how did you get into the space before and hop in? So, it's to me, I guess, weird to like pick somebody. So I'm gonna pass it to Jay.
All right.
Yeah.
I have answers. Okay, so I think especially dealing with NFTs, you should lead with like your absolute best. The thing that you are most proud of in this world. I know, especially when I got into it, which was like beginning of 2021, there was like a thought of, well, like, what if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't take off? Like, and then I put out all this great work and it's on the blockchain, and then I'm trying to build up, you know, these to my best work, you know, just in case it doesn't sell or it sells for too low or whatever. And my take on it is that, you know, like, you should just lead with your best work, because your best work now shouldn't be your best work in the future, you know? So I had been a full-time photographer for like almost a decade before I got into NFTs, and I was like, man, well, if like the best work I ever made was made in the first 10 years of my career, that doesn't bode super well for the next 10 years of my career, you know? So I was like, I just want to take the greatest thing I've ever made and put it out there, and I couldn't pick. And so I took 3 images all at once, and I dropped kind of a Genesis 3-piece collection called Hearth, which you own 2 of. But it was all at once, and I felt like showing off kind of a variety of what I shoot and the places I go. So I picked like warm, cold, wildlife, because that's like, you know, I don't know, a big range of shots. And yeah, I just feel like lead with the very best that you have, and then if it works out, go make more. go make.
Yeah, and that's a good point
better
too. You
stuff.
mentioned you put out a collection. You put out 3 pieces, a little different. That's something that, like, you know, it's not just a Genesis piece, it's Genesis collection. And I think maybe some other people have done that too. Meg, how was your Genesis?
So I feel like my journey in the space has been kind of all over the place. Like when I first started, in the NFT space, it was February, not last year, but the year before. And my friend Kara, who's a model who I work with all the time, she called me and was like, have you heard of NFTs? Because her boyfriend's super into crypto. And I was like, what the fuck is an NFT? And then she just started explaining it to me, and I was like, I don't really see how. And there wasn't photography really in the space. That was very, very early. And I was like, I don't know. And I was like, but I could kind of see it working. So like, let's learn more. And we jumped on Clubhouse and started like listening. We made a few friends in there. And there was a lot of like, there wasn't a lot of photography in this space, but there was like a lot of like photography that moved at the time. Like there was like motion and digital art was like the thing. So I was like, maybe I could take one of my photos and animate it. And I had this photo that I shot for this magazine of my friend Julia, who's a model, and we created this beautiful set of photos together, and I just picked one out that I really loved, and I made the water move. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, I've never done that. So it kind of pushed me to do something a little bit different. And it sold within a week, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And then my life kind of blew up and got crazy, and I had to take a step back because I had to I wanted to come into the space in the right way and not just put stuff out and be like very intentional with everything that I do. So I stepped out of space for a little bit, was like kind of paying attention to everything, but not like active. And then I was on a shoot, and one of the models had a Bored Ape and was into NFTs. And we had been talking about it. And I was like, yeah, I really want to do more. And my life had kind of settled down a little bit. And I was like, we should do a shoot together. And so we collaborated on a shoot and created a really cool set of like spacey images and just kind of went from there. And then I kind of just evolved in the space and started shooting more of like what I wanted to shoot, and just kind of kept like, I guess I'm kind of finding my artistic path through NFTs in a way too, because I was doing a lot more commercial work before. So yeah.
So you've had the freedom since entering the space to kind of pursue more what you want to pursue and less of just like, oh, the commercial work is I gotta stick to this outline or rubric.
Yeah, and now I'm doing like underwater stuff and kind of learning new things and
with
just
whales.
doing things I've always wanted to do.
Dancing with whales.
Exactly. So it's like it's really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Joelle, how was your
Grab that.
Genesis?
I actually had to look. I didn't remember what I
I love that.
It's too early for that.
It's been so long.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so I got into the space in July 2021. And I was actually on a trek with my friend Kath Simard. I don't know if you've heard of her.
We've heard of her a little bit.
It was Kath, me, and Monica. We were in Garibaldi, and they were just talking nonstop about NFTs. They were like yapping the whole time. And at the time, I'm pretty big into environmental activism. And at the time, we didn't have a lot of information on NFTs, and we all thought they were bad for the environment. So I was very reluctant. And I did some digging, and I figured it's probably, lobbies and the central bank trying to scare us. So I was like, okay.
And Tezos doing hashtag green art.
Yeah. So anyway, I decided to give it a shot. I didn't really know what to expect. And before NFTs, I was shooting food mostly. So, my landscape didn't get much traction online, so I figured it was pretty average. I didn't really experiment with it. So I decided to push myself and experiment with composite photography, which was pretty new to me. So it was actually great. Like when I got into the space, I got very creative and suddenly started being inspired to edit very old photos, like from years ago. So my genesis was a combination of a kayak shot that I took very late in the season. So it was freezing. The kayak had frost on it. It was 4 a.m. When I started paddling. So it was a lot of effort. And I was by myself in Jasper National Park when I shot that. And then I combined it with some Milky Way shot I took years ago. And I think it was my first composite that I was really, really happy with. So yeah, I'm into that. And then I don't know, it went really well initially. It was kind of crazy the first few months. I was blown away, and So yeah, I just decided to stay in this space. It's been such a great
Have you been
experience.
taking more food pics since getting in the space, or do you find yourself moving away from food?
I actually did a few contracts, yes, but I live in a van for the most part, like Jay. So it wasn't very convenient for me. You know, I tried, but I didn't have running water. I didn't have hot water. So, you know, making raw vegan cakes in the van without hot water when you're trying to clean the coconut oil that hardens, it was such a pain in the ass. So I gave up on that. So when I have access to an apartment, I love doing that still. But you know, I'm really grateful to have collectors like yourself and Sneakerdad here, to allow me to just pursue my passions, which is like spending time in nature and hiking. Because I much prefer doing that than, you know, being stuck in a kitchen all day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel that.
So that's it.
That's awesome. I didn't know the food part.
Really?
Yeah, like the
oh,
food
I
pics.
actually talked about that like quite a bit, and I shared a few photos. Not
Like
too
I've
often.
seen them, but I never like thought about. Like I've seen all the photos,
Yeah.
especially like on Instagram or on Twitter of just like different
It's
food
been a
things, but
while.
I don't
They're
really
hidden.
like. I guess I didn't put two and together. Like, oh,
Yeah, no, I did vegan recipe development for years and shot for clients.
nice.
Yeah, I might go back to it at some point. We'll see.
It's there.
Yeah,
The vegans aren't going anywhere; they're going up. There's more of them.
that's it. Oh, you have one.
Talking about Genesis, it's funny because when you said it, I was like, "Oh, my super rare Genesis," and I'm like, "That's actually not
Yeah,
my
it's
Genesis." So actually, my story is kind of like Meg's in the sense that I got in really early, and then I was just kind of like, I was overwhelmed, and I was also like, I want to do this right. So there was a lot of time spent on Clubhouse because it was like before anyone could really be like outside, and it was great. I mean, there were days where I would like work out in my apartment, be on Clubhouse all day long, make food at my apartment, and then go to sleep. I like wouldn't even leave my front door. And like it was the best, you know, but I just like in that time I felt like it was a lot of people just kind of learning out loud, and I'm definitely always been the second person to jump off the bridge. I need to see someone else do it first. That is just the kind of person I am. I will not jump first. I will jump second. And that's what I did. I also, like Meg, thought that everything needed to be a cinematograph, which like if you're listening and you think that's true still, it's not. You can just mint a JPEG. It's okay. I had this piece called Liability, and I minted it in October of 2021, which is like hilarious because I literally got in the space in like February. Andrew, shout out, my boyfriend, animated it for me, which is funny now because I know how to do that myself. He had fun with it. And it sold to someone that knew me from Instagram. And I had no other bids, and I was like, yay. And it just like, I don't know. I just like, the piece meant a lot to me because it's like, it's based on this song by Lorde called Liability. And it's all about like her being told she's like too much, which has been like such a thing in my life. Like people have always been like, oh, you're too much, your personality in this. And it's just like, no, I'm actually not. Okay. And, so it did mean a lot to me. Like, I'm glad I minted that piece. But yeah, it wasn't like anything like, I don't know. I don't think it was like one of my best pieces. It just meant the most to me at the time. So yeah, I don't know. I just like, I didn't really have like a lot of like thought behind it. Like I didn't even really plan it. I just remember texting one of my friends and I was like, I did it. And she was like, cool. Like I didn't even think about it because I just needed to do it at that point. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I got into the space and just like didn't really like, I don't know. I was scared. I felt like Frogger. I was playing Frogger and I didn't know how to move. I was just like watching everything go by. Like, oh my God, what's happening? So yeah, it was a long time before I actually like did anything.
Nice. And I just am kind of realizing that like maybe I should sit next to Andy so I can like pass him the mic to ask questions.
I'll reach over and grab it when I
Okay,
need to.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, don't worry.
This is all a work in progress. Collectors is something that I think about a lot as a collector, and like curious as to how your collector growth has happened in the space, and like, you know, maybe what tips you can, if you have one tip, just like give somebody to like build a decent collector base. But like you, Postwook said, you know, my collector from Instagram came over and bought it. Did that like, were you active on Twitter before, or were you only active on Instagram, or did you like have a Twitter following at all? Like, I guess I'm curious, like, how was the Instagram collector someone who was already into NFTs, or did they like get into NFTs because they wanted to collect your work? Like that type of stuff is what I'm curious about. Like, how did you find the collector and then like continue to grow collectors after the first sell?
he was a Wook for sure. Shout out Wooks. We love Wooks. I think he had crypto. I think he was like more of a crypto person who just like knew my work.
Nice.
I did have someone at one point like buy my work. He was also like, I had this one other collector like a little bit down the line who, he found my work on Instagram and was really into art blocks. And he was like, you're my first like actual like non-gen art piece. And I was like, that's really cool. So that's happened. And, there were a few like early collectors that were like from Instagram. Like there's this one girl, it's this couple I know. And, he's in the space and works in crypto and everything. And she didn't really understand it until she saw my work. And then it made sense to her. And I was like, that's really cool to have that moment for someone. But in the beginning, I mean, I had like a little Twitter following, but nothing crazy. Like I was mostly like trying to tweet out like pictures of coasters to sell them. And I don't know, like I kind of came out of like the EDM world. So like a lot of the people I followed on Twitter were from that world. But like I mostly like kind of was on Instagram first, but I actually at the beginning was like, oh, I wish I like built a following on Twitter, not Instagram like before NFTs. But like, I'm kind of glad I didn't because like I've been able to kind of speak different languages on different platforms, and build like I feel like my Twitter following now is just like a whole bunch of like DJs and Wooks who like don't understand and see me in Twitter spaces and they're like, you're the only person I ever seen in Twitter space. And then it's like everyone else in the space, which is really cool because it's like, I feel like I've actually like, there's people who aren't like NFTs are horrible for the environment. You're killing rabbits and you're horrible. Like, I don't really have that. So that's cool. But, I would say like, I mean, to your first question of like, how did you kind of build the collector base? I mean, for me, organically, I think like the beginning was from Instagram and then I think little bit by little bit like went to Twitter and then like it just kind of was a slow kind of roll and then I started really like finding my footing and feeling comfortable being myself because like again, I mean being told for so long, oh, you're a lot. Like I kind of had this thought of like, oh, well, if I show people who I really am, then they're not going to like me because I didn't like me. But I do like me now. So it's like, no, if you don't like me, then like you can deal with it because I like me. And I just started really being myself. You know, I found a really amazing community of crypto dick butts that like enable me to be myself. Right. Like that. But yeah. And like, that's who I am. You know, it's like I'm silly and funny, but like at the end of the day, like I can get stuff done. And I think like when I found that group of people, I was like, oh, this actually really makes sense for me. Seriously. And like I felt
dick butts just made sense.
Yeah. They just make sense.
Like finally, my people.
But like, yeah, no. But I like never would tweet things like that weren't art or like fortune.
Found the dick butt.
But like I wouldn't tweet things that weren't art or like fortune cookie platitudes, you know, like I mean you've seen artists like they tweet things like make sure the art comes from your heart. It's like that's an engagement farm and it's great. But it's like I wouldn't feel comfortable tweeting like my back really hurts today prior to like feeling comfortable with myself. So genuinely I feel like being myself attracted the people to my work that I like wanted. So I genuinely feel like just me being myself helped. So if that's, and again, your other question was what advice would you give people? Like, that's it. Just be yourself and like the right people will come.
No, that's great. I think the space enables you to be yourself. Like you are rewarded for being your true self because people see the authenticity and they fuck with it. Like they don't want to see the fake veneer of, you know, whatever false platitudes you're preaching on Twitter. But like, so you two met in dick butts? Like you didn't know each other before dick butts?
Oh, I noticed her because of her dick butt PFP for sure. I was like, "You're my people."
You're scrolling down the feed. You're like, "Oh, that's a nice piece." Wait, that's a dick butt. Like Fallout.
I think I started talking to you because of your dick butt.
Well, actually, okay, you probably did, and I want to say I traded my first dick butt for a piece of art. I have to say that.
Oh,
wow, that's really impressive.
How did you get the dick butt? Did you mint it? Were you early? Like, did you?
No, one of my homie collectors literally who rolled into my DMs with like a gif of like pew pew, like it was like sell me this piece, and I was like okay,
and then sell me this piece.
I can show you the DM, it's funny, but later at a later time he was like, I really like this other piece, but he was like, can I trade you a dick butt for it? And I was like, yeah, absolutely, because I had tweeted I will trade one of ones for dick butts. I tweeted it and then he did it, and I was like, hell yeah, let's go, and it was perfect. So
that's awesome.
I actually also tried to trade my art for dick butts. I wasn't that successful. I had to buy them myself, unfortunately. Oh, no. I like what you said about my back hurts. I will tweet that later. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to deny it. I think having friends in the community really helped me get a head start. And also, I think I started my Twitter journey with a grand total of 60 followers from the food community. So it wasn't very helpful. And then it quickly grew. I think it was very fast in the beginning, like the first few months. And I think because I have a background in finance. I worked in finance before and did sales and cold calling and things like that. And I think I don't have an issue, approaching people and being told no and things like that. But I never really shilled to collectors. I like building genuine connections. And if we don't vibe, we don't vibe. I'm not going to try to push and force relationships, right? So there's a lot of collectors out there that I know they're great people, but it's just like the conversation doesn't really flow naturally. So I don't try to force it, right? So I think accepting that and just, not expecting to be friends with everyone and just focus on the people with who you just like develop like a natural friendship is really important, but also to not be scared to contact people because you never know. I think my best example is NorCal. NorCal and I became really good friends and we started talking about permaculture and, building a homestead. Like I'm a big hippie and then I met his wife and we talked about like heirloom seeds and gardening, and so it was just natural and that's what I really like. And so like, yeah, I mean, I've been talking to everyone. I'm pretty social, but I think there's a lot of artists that are walking on eggshells around collectors. They don't want them to think they only want to talk to them because they want something in return. So I think it all comes down to just being genuine and vibing with people and just letting it flow naturally, really. Kind of like with any other artist that you're going to talk to,
Yeah, no, that's a reoccurring theme, I think.
Yeah.
Especially with like the art I've collected as a collector. It's like I buy art from the people I vibe with and, don't buy art from the people I don't.
Yeah.
So don't push it. For sure.
Don't push these.
No, don't push.
So my collector base, how did I start? My first NFT ever, I was in a clubhouse room and we were just talking about like my friends would host drop spaces for me in clubhouse rooms and we would just talk about the art. And another artist actually, so because I shoot women, I shoot a lot of nudes. A lot of people who like my work are men, naturally. But I was in a clubhouse room and the artist Zoe Winters, she does like this cool like 3D anime kind of type stuff. Yeah. So Zoe Winters was in there and she was like, I just love the piece. I think you're super talented. I love your story. I'm buying your work. And I was like, wow. So that was cool to me because I was like, a woman's collecting my, like, that was really cool to me.
One of your first collectors or your first collector?
My first collector ever. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And she still has it and is like, I'm never selling it. Like, yeah. So she's awesome.
And all just from going up on a clubhouse space.
And just being myself and talking to people.
Sharing your story and, why you created this.
Yeah. And then from there, I would say I did the collab with Ella Orton, who had a Bored Ape. So I'm sure I got some of her people on my first collection that I did. And then after that, during that collection, actually, Guy's Galaxy bought one of the pieces. And then
shout out, Guy.
Yeah, shout out, Guy. What's up? And then he, like, every time I put something out, he, like, would at least buy one. Like, sometimes he'd buy multiple. And I was like, who is this guy?
Who is this guy?
I had a Twitter space, like another drop space that my friends held for me. And I was just talking about the art. And I think you came in and Guy came in. And I was like, who are you? Like, what's happening here?
Who are you?
And I was just like, what's happening? He was like, well, I followed you on Instagram for like years and I loved your work. And when you came into the space, I was just so excited. So I guess like in that sense, having a presence on Instagram did help me in a lot of ways. Like I wouldn't say most of my collectors don't come from Instagram, but because Guy already knew who I was and he was like, oh shit, she's doing NFTs now. That was exciting for him because he was like, I kind of like, you know, he was like one of the first people that believed in me. And then from there, like I would just go hang out with Guy. Like in that space, I was like, where are you? He's like, New York, but I'm coming to LA tomorrow. I was like, let's smoke a joint together. So he invited me over to the Beverly Hills Hotel with all of his friends and we all just like vibed and had a really good time. And then from there, like you guys came in town. He introduced me to you guys and I gave him a print and it was sitting there. And then you guys saw the print and were like, your work is dope. We love your stuff. And we just vibed all week. And yeah, I mean, same as Joelle and everybody. Like, I came into the space not really knowing many people at all, and I just went on Clubhouse and then Twitter Spaces and created or became parts of different communities, different artists, different collectors, and doing that and just like being myself, and then going to physical events and meeting people, because like I don't know, when I met you, Deez, I didn't know who you were. Yeah. Like I was just like, oh cool, like another friend, sick. Yeah. Like I was really naive coming into everything, but like also I think it's better that way. Like I don't really
100%. It was just like we were able to just talk about shit and be friends and not worry about whatever.
Exactly. So I think just being yourself and connecting with people on a genuine level and not trying to force anything, not like, I don't know, not shilling your art constantly, just vibing. And then like if someone sees you, they're going to figure out who you are. They're going to eventually see your art. Like just be yourself. It's to me, it's like I'm just having fun. I'm just having a good time and like meeting new friends. Like I had a career before all of this doing photography. So like for me, it wasn't about like, oh, I need to make a bunch of money and I'm going to go in it. It's just, this is fun. This is a new thing. And I'm so grateful for all the friendships and like collectors like you guys that I've met. So
yeah, no, it's funny that you like bring up the Instagram part, because I do think like the Instagram is important. It's like this, I'd say, proof of work that I go back and look at. Like even if you're active on Twitter and you're not active on Instagram, like I do go back, look at like your first post and like kind of the progression, and like it's nice to have. Or ideally, if you have a site that just has a portfolio that shows like years and then what you made over the years, that kind of does the same thing. But it's like some way for a collector to kind of verify that like portfolio proof of work type thing. So I think it is helpful there.
Yeah,
and
because I think if you like invest so much energy into something to build something to a certain level, it's like obviously they've done a lot of work. Obviously they've been shooting for a long time. They're going to continue shooting. It's not just like
and you can see the progress too. Like, oh, this is like when they started out versus like this is what they most recently did. Yeah. Jay,
I forgot to say something really important.
Oh yeah,
I sold a lot of pieces to Dig Buds.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is that's the alpha too?
That's the
get
alpha.
Get involved with a
with
community that you actually fuck with. Like that you can genuinely fuck with, not just like come off as, hey, I'm rocking fake punk and I hope punk owners buy my pieces or something. Like dick butts are 100% generally you. So it's like,
for sure. Yes, I should post a lot.
Yeah, I mean you're like,
I know. I have a dick butt swimsuit. What am I doing?
2 dick butt swimsuits are on the couch.
That's right.
like a swimsuit photo shoot with you guys.
Oh my god, yes. Let's go bury ourselves
dick
in the
butt photo
sand.
shoot.
You meant it.
Yeah.
It's only people who have a dick butt can claim the mint, and it's like
actually, you know what I wanted to do? Do you know the crypto game World Wide Web?
Yeah.
Okay, so I own 8 apartments now, and I know that you can display a video in your apartments. And I turned mine into like some creepy sex dungeon, and I want to have so I have a wall of urinals in there, and then I have a line of beds, and then I have a separate Jeffrey Epstein room. It's like wait, it's so good. It's like a wall of cameras, and you can creep into the like urinal room. So anyway, I'm gonna have private collector events. You're invited.
This is like that dude's house.
And it's gonna be like all my collectors can get to see my upcoming drops in there, and it's going to be very exclusive. So yes, I'm just letting you guys know.
Look at the utility.
Are we going to drop our panties, or are we going to be...
I like that. Yeah. Brainstorming session.
Oh,
that's
my
good.
goodness. See, this is where we go with the roundtable. It's like we start off with something, and then next thing we know, we're deep in a dick butt sex dungeon, and we're doing a drop for holders.
And it's 10 a.m.
Hey, only up from here.
I don't have.
Oh, it's almost noon, so we're good.
Jay, you don't have any sex dungeon plans?
Yeah, I don't have a dick butt, and I don't have any sex dungeons, so I don't really.
You're doing okay. You're doing
Thanks,
okay.
man. I appreciate that. I really. I needed to hear that. Thank you.
I'm working on it.
If I wanted a dick butt before hearing about the sex dungeon, I don't now. So I'm gonna leave the dick butts alone for a while.
You don't want any?
No dick butt.
Would you want a tit badge?
Yes, absolutely.
After this is done, I will make sure everyone here has a tit badge.
Yeah,
I have 3.
Yeah, I have a guy and I minted like 350 combined.
I have that. I have larva chads, larva Karens,
I'll make
anything
sure-
naked. It's on my wallet.
I will let you pick out a tit badge from the vault, and we'll make sure that
make me a tit badge whale, please. It's time.
Do you guys find it's hard? Well, Jay, I haven't even answered the question, so sorry. Let me not cut you off.
To answer your question, how to build a collective base, just be you. Don't be fucking weird. Be a human being.
Don't be fucking weird. Within a month of meeting you, you came on the boat with Sobe, ice bags, and us when we were all in Florida.
Yeah.
And you brought Cassidy, and it was just a whole vibe. We're like, wow, these are just the most genuine, down-to-earth people. And like,
so are you guys. Like, it goes both ways. Just treat collectors like people. Like, I've said a lot of times on Twitter that, like, put people before profits, and I say that all the time because, like, if there are collectors in the space and there's people who fuck with your work and they love what you do, like, the best way to approach them isn't to approach them from like a business sense or like a trying to prove to them that your art is like worth something or valuable. Usually if a collector is in a position to collect, they're gonna collect whatever they want and whatever they fuck with. And so if you spend your time just making friends, that is going to outlast any sale that you ever make. And you can, sales go up and down and stuff like that. But like, it really was the friends we made along the way. I know it's like a joke, but like for real, that's how it feels. And that's all the best collectors I have started out as people who I just wanted to be friends with because I thought they were awesome. And that was really you and Sobe and Pags were like these people that I admired on Twitter. I looked up to and I was like, hey, like that sounds great. Let's go hang out. You know what I mean? Like, but it was
you put yourself out there though. Like you drove out to come hang out with us.
Yeah, of course. Like, it sounded super fun. It sounded awesome. And I also just think like if you're not trying to be friends with everyone, you're not trying to be, homies with all of your collectors. And like the other thing you can do is just be the best at something. Like be the best at something. That was like the best advice that I ever got when I first started photography. There's a super successful adventure photographer named Chris Burkhardt who is a friend at this point, and he had said years and years and years ago, he was like, you can't do everything well. There's a lot of talented photographers, a lot of talented artists out there. Like you aren't ever gonna do everything at a competitive, marketable art level, but you can be the best at what you do. You can be the best at one thing, and that like people will notice. You're not in a sea of trying to kind of shoot the same thing or the same trails, mountains, whatever. You become kind of like the only person who does that thing. So if there's a market for it, you're the person, which is also something that I tried to bring to NFTs. Was something that I didn't see a lot of. So yeah. But friends first is just like the way to go.
Friends first.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, I feel like Sneakerdad, you're a prominent collector. You find a bunch of artists when they're like selling pieces for $20 on Tezos. Really curious, how do you befriend artists? Like, we'll flip the question from a collector perspective. Like, how do you befriend artists and like find emerging artists and kind of help them out? Because you've had, like, we'll just go with Bohemia recently. Yeah. You've showed me this guy's art on Tezos. It was under $50 for one-on-ones.
It was like a 1.5 Tez.
For a one-on-one.
Or it was 10 Tez for a one-on-one.
Like, new artist.
So
and then
$11.
He recognized his talent, became friends with them, and like within a couple months, he was on Super Rare. He sold a Super Rare Genesis. Couple weeks.
Yeah.
But like, how do you find like emerging artists, and how do you befriend them? And like, if you had any tips for artists, like
yeah. So I'm a little bit. So first off, I think being yourself is like the biggest thing. Like I personally, like, I hate when I get DMs from people, but some people get them and are like,
DM you just
no, like cold chills. I hate cold chills. I hate cold chills. Some people are open to it and that's okay, but it's like some people keep going. But like I like finding art on my own. It's just like kind of going down a rabbit hole and exploring and then just like looking at their stuff, and it's like if I mess with it, then like I kind of just like continue to go down that rabbit hole, and it's just like I don't really like interfere. I like kind of just naturally coming about it. That's like my whole thing. It's like really weird, but like it's more exciting for me because like I truly enjoy like consuming art to like find it myself on my own or through like a recommendation of a friend, but like not being like coerced by the artist. I want their art to like kind of like do the talking, if that makes any sense. Like I think if we're friends, it's totally different. Like if you're meeting somebody, fine, or like if I'm in a space, fine, like and we're talking, like I think those kinds of connections are like the biggest and the best way to really grow in this space. It's there's like this whole like cliche saying about like it's not what you know but who you know, and like just like anything in life, business, whatever, that's like really prevalent here. But like I know that not everybody has that opportunity, and like I really enjoy art, so like if I can try and find a way, especially I see these people on Tezos as an example, and it's 10 Tezos for them might like last them an entire day or like a couple days or whatever, and support them. So I gotta remember that. But when I see that art, it's like, man, this could sell for so much more. And it's not even like I want to sell it for my bags. Like it's all in like a vault. Like I'm not touching it. But like, and I could care less if it goes to zero, because like I bought it for nothing and I think it's fucking cool. But it's like I feel like if I have the ability to put those people that really don't have like the platform, like we have friends that maybe took a while to get on Super Rare, but they have tens of thousands of followers. They have a platform. This guy had under 100 followers. Like he was brand new, and it's just like, and I thought he was really good, and other people saw it too. So it was like, okay, all I did was just share it with other friends, and it was like, okay, I like it too. Like shout out to GVG. GVG was like a huge like person. He's a great collector. I shared a lot of work with him. He thought it was really cool as well, and he kind of helped me propel this guy. But like I mean that guy Alamac. Yeah. Alamac is another guy that like I kind of found really early. There's a lot of them, and it's just like it's just fun. It's like I think collecting art should be fun. I think that those are the good kind of collectors, not the ones looking to like. I mean, it's cool like when people want to look at your work as an investment and see like that much value in it, but at the same time, like I think there's something to just enjoying and consuming art for the purpose of liking art.
Yeah, you don't want to put that pressure on the artist of like you better return on this investment or or else.
You know what else too? Like I was just thinking, all art usually is, it's just an expression of yourself, right? So like art is self-expression of our human experience. All art is us trying to tell a story that we've either lived or perceived about the world around us, and we're like doing our best to share that with other people. So it just reinforces the fact that like if your art is the most important part about yourself, you're just telling the story of yourself. Like you're just so it goes back to just being you and being a genuine person, being interested in other people's stories, because that's where the art comes from anyway. So in trying to sell your art, you're just selling yourself, which the best way to sell yourself is by just being you. You can't, what I mean, if you try too hard, it comes off as extremely disingenuous. So if you do it well, you do both at the same time. You approach people in a real genuine way that makes them want to be your friend, because you actually want to be their friend. And if your art is a reflection of that, then that's like who you are anyway. So
also one other thing, because like about collectors, like don't ever like, I hate how like people like put them on pedestals. Like I'll say this on here as a collector, like fuck collectors. Like
collectors aren't shit.
Like no, like they're a part of it, but like at the end of the day, like your art collectors. Yo, don't ever buy a piece of my art ever again. Like I'm good just managing artists and like collecting. But don't buy from my artists, I guess. But no, I think though, like, there are going to be a lot of people that enjoy your art and appreciate it for what it is. And like anybody that you put on a pedestal is not somebody worth doing. Like Deez is a homie, but some people put you on this pedestal and it's like, you're just a guy. And like, there are so many anon people. Well, I'm just saying, there's just like, you just some young guy. But like, there are so many anons in this space that like, you don't know what they have. Like, you could check the chain, but you don't know. Like some of them like have 400 followers and they probably have some of the bigger wallets, and you just don't know, and they don't want to be known, and that's okay. So it's just like, you just never know who's going to collect your work, and it's just be true to yourself. Don't worry about the collectors, and don't think of yourself or compare yourself to like a PFP project. I hate when people do that. And like,
why is the floor on board $100,000?
Like,
I can't sell a piece for 30.
I've noticed like, you know, I don't think you like, you know, like you don't even need like a Discord. Like it'd be cool if you want to have one, but like you're not a PFP project.
I can't
like,
do a Discord. Not another Discord.
Discord has killed me.
I know if I mention
Terrible,
Discord to
right?
Andy,
Terrible.
it's just like
whenever I have someone message me like a Discord link to join like some Discord or something, I just tell them I don't join Discords anymore. Like, I'm sorry. Like, if I join, I will just never look at it again. And then you'll be like, why is Andy ignoring my messages on Discord? So I don't do it. But I was curious, as like you're talking about like Tezos and all of that kind of stuff, like how do you all think about like more so the distribution of your artwork? Like, are you intentionally only doing things on ETH or super rare, or like, and how do you think about like the cadence? Are you kind of very intentional about like, oh, I only want to release so many pieces a year? I feel like I see that from some people, and other people just kind of, when they have new art and they release it. I'm just curious like what your kind of style is there and how you think about it. I find that stuff very interesting as someone who does not have anything to do with that.
So I make a very big deal out of my pieces. I make like, at times I make like entire sort of cinematic films just to release one photo, like one image. I think that the blockchain is forever, and if there was ever a time to be enormously picky about what art you actually release into the world, the blockchain is it. You can, I mean, if you have art up in a gallery, like a physical gallery, you can just take it down. You know what I mean? And if it sells, even if it sells, it ends up in somebody's house, like never to be seen again. That's how it is in the trad art world and where I come from. But if it's an NFT, I mean, it's just around forever. And yeah, I think aggressive self-curation makes for the best art. And I've only minted, I mean, been here for a while. I've only minted maybe like 30 pieces, like 30 something. Not many. I try to keep my 101s super scarce. I just think there's a lot to see. There's a lot of mountains to climb and phenomena to be found out there in the world. And if we start just putting out every pretty thing that we see or drive past, then it's just going to oversaturate it. At least that's where I come from. So I try to make my mints something truly spectacular. I've always talked about the like X factor of an art piece, and that for me is like luck. So I think three things are like as a photographer, you need basically the place. You need to put yourself in a position to be in a place that has something magnificent that you want to shoot. You have to have the mechanical skill to make it happen. But then like that third piece that not everyone can have and that can't be like really recreated by just anyone with a camera is that like lucky part. It's the wildlife encounter. It's the weather phenomenon. It's the natural event. It's the place that's so far out that nobody's ever seen it before. It's something that makes your art stand out above just like another picture of a pretty place. And yeah, so if I don't have that in an image, I try not to mint it.
I agree with you on a lot of that. I also think that in the NFT space is kind of where I've found my artistic journey a little bit more. Like I used to shoot nudes before NFTs, but I would shoot them and have really no purpose behind doing it besides the fact that I liked doing it. And the girls I would work with would like doing it as well. Like one time I was on a trip with a swimwear brand in Turks and Caicos. We were all on a boat and we got to this little private island where there was no people. And the girls were just like, can we please shoot nudes? Because they had a safe space to do it, a beautiful location. And they were like, they love themselves and they wanted to document that. And I was like, absolutely. So we would just get creative and like play and have fun. And so I still like to incorporate that with what I do. And I still like to just kind of like how I vibe with you guys, I vibe with my models, but I have my camera and we go around and we just like do fun things and I capture things. But sometimes there are those moments, just like Jay was saying, like in the Maldives, I was on mushrooms Sorry. This is
It's always on mushrooms.
in the Maldives.
So
yeah.
the moments, like, it's a luck multiplier.
I feel
Like,
ridiculous
there's
saying
a
some of the
little
things
bit of
on my
mushrooms
weight.
increase the luck by, like, at least 2x.
Yeah. And so my friend, we were just hanging out. It was a bunch of the girls and me, and we were in the ocean hanging out, and the sun was setting, and it was like crazy beautiful. And I had my camera right there, and I was like, hold on. And I was like, go take your top off. And she's like, okay. We've shot nude before, so it wasn't, it's not like disrespectful.
You're commanding.
Yeah. Like, she's super comfortable. We've created NFTs before.
Yes.
So I was like, take your top off, go, like, do shapes right there. There's a silhouette. Like, it looks so sick. And it ended up being one of the pieces, and I titled it Silhouette, like psilocybin kind of. And I think I actually misspelled it. But guy ended up collecting that one. And it, so moments like that, I totally agree with. And I think that with my one-of-ones and what I put up, I am really selective and I am really picky, and I wait for those moments or that perfect light, the way that it hits something. Like, it's that. But then I also have another collection that I did, because one of my things in my career that's like held me back from doing things is sometimes working with models. And I love working with my models. I have great relationships with them, but the girls I work with, some of them are making a lot of money. I don't like a lot from Instagram, from other like platforms, and they don't see, like, they're busy and they're doing a lot, and they're, so they're like, well, this much money is, and I'm like, okay, I guess I won't do anything with this then, like, we just had it for fun. It's fine. But creatively, I have so much more in me, and I've been exploring. I started on film, and then I had to stop shooting film for a while because I was broke. And now that I'm doing NFTs, I'm like, oh, I can afford to do film again. And that's kind of one of my first loves of photography. So I got to kind of come back to it. And with film, I shoot so differently because it doesn't feel like work. Like, sometimes when I have my digital camera, I've been on so many jobs where I just have to click, click, click all the time. And I have to go through thousands of photos later and color correct and do all these things. And it feels like work sometimes. But with film, it feels more like, oh, this is like a special moment that I'm going to capture. I'm going to be really selective. And those moments are what I'm going to remember forever from this trip or from wherever I am. So, like, because I'm a lot more selective with that, then I sometimes get these magical images of like places that I've been and that have shaped me in my career. And I put together a collection kind of talking about that from different places that I've been in the world, some pictures of myself in different places, and things where I don't have to like think about working with someone else, because that's been really liberating for me too. So I think that you can use minting your things to like kind of grow yourself as an artist and just like learn different things about what you love. And I think that there's different ways you can go about it, but I do think whatever you do mint is special. And to me, I do put a lot of thought, probably too much thought. Sometimes I overthink, and then I just don't mint anything because I'm like, wait, what do I want to put out? And I overthink it and I get in my head. And then sometimes I'm like, well, maybe I just need to mint it tomorrow, and I just like do something, because if I don't just do it, then sometimes I overthink. So yeah.
I want to say one more thing. So one thing that I was just thinking about, I guess this applies more to like the landscape, outdoor, adventure world. But when I was doing commercial work for years and years and years before getting into NFTs, I really wanted my work in galleries. Like, I wanted my work to be owned by like trad art collectors and in like fine art museums and stuff like that. But I was mostly selling my work to like brands and companies and travel agencies and stuff like that. So I was trying to figure out what kind of work would shift me from commercial work into art. And that made this like distinction in my head between like taking a photograph and making art from photography. And I've kept that distinction in my head for a long time. I still make that distinction. I have a hard time saying that just like a picture of a pretty place where really the nature did all the work for you is like art. Like, is that art, or are you a recorder for the mountain that looks, incredible all the time because it's a mountain? You know what I mean? So like, what can you do to make your photo of the outdoors or of nature not just a photo of a mountain that we've seen, but truly art, something moving, something that evokes emotion? So anyway, I started thinking years and years ago about how to shoot, not for the purpose of just showing what a place looked like, but more how a place made me feel. And it's very, very different. And I shoot now with pretty much just that in mind, and that does not happen often. So that's another reason for like the scarcity of minting for me, is just the fact that I live on the road and I shoot a lot of pretty things. There's a lot of nice sunsets and nice hills and pretty mountains and stuff like that, and I encounter that often. But it does become like, it's just another mountain. It's just another sunset. It's just like, how do I make this more? How do I make this more impactful, more special? And so that's why I've kind of like driven myself into this tiny little corner that I enjoy of like of that aggressive self-curation, is because like, it's not even I choose it all the time. It's that it just happens. Like if I'm only chasing these really rare moments in nature or in the outdoors, like I just naturally won't take that many photos that I actually release. So even before getting into NFTs, I would take maybe 200,000 to 300,000 photos a year, and I would professionally release maybe 10, like 5 to 10 of that bazillion. So like I was kind of on that road of curation before NFTs, and I just carried it over. So anyway.
Well, I'm at the opposite end of the spectrum here. I appreciate that and I do respect it, but personally, I think I don't like limiting myself too much. If I happen to have good work, I don't want to keep it to myself. I like selling dreams, you know, like sometimes I like making my images look like paintings, and oftentimes too, like I have collectors reach out to me and they're inquiring about a piece that I sold. They're like, oh, I like your moonshot. Do you have anything else that's similar coming up? And I don't. And so I realized along the way that just because I'm minting a piece doesn't mean like all the collectors are going to like it. There's like a whole range, you know, some people just prefer my minimalist daytime shots. Some people like my astro work. And then I went to Norway for a month and a half and shot like insane northern lights there. So I had a few people inquire about that. So if the work is good and you have demand for it, like why not?
Yeah.
You know, if I stop selling, then maybe I will reconsider. I don't think over minting is necessarily a good idea either. But I like experimenting. You know, I think NFTs have given me like such a big opportunity compared to what I had going on before. So for me, I didn't come from the same background as Jay, right? Like I only had like food photography clients. And so this has been very exciting, and it's allowed me to spend more time in the backcountry doing something I love. So, you know, there's, I don't know, if you have the chance to sell pieces and like, you know, share your message out there, like why not? But yeah, that being said, I think I'm at a point now where I'm going to start slowing down because I prefer minting on super rare like less often and then really get to work on a piece. You know, like the first piece I minted on there, I spent like over a week editing it. And then shooting it was like quite a few weeks trying to find like the right place, you know, hiking all the way up there was like a crazy intense hike. And then I had to stay up all night for 2 weeks in Norway chasing northern lights. Yeah, I got really lucky when I got there. The sky was just exploding every night, and in the Arctic it's so much better than it is in Banff. And so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make it my trip worth it and push myself. I slept in the car without a sleeping mat. It was awful, very uncomfortable, but I got the shots. So yeah, I think you have to just go with the flow. If you overthink it, sometimes you miss out on a lot of opportunities, I find. Yeah.
That's good. I always think like in the adventure photography clique specifically, like what you guys do feels pretty risky, and you're just going out into the wilderness, sometimes by yourself or
with wolves,
with one other person. Like, I don't have the heart for that. Like, I'm good. I'm like, I'll collect the shot, but I won't go out and get the shot.
I think that's what's so cool about it, though. I think that's what's so cool about the fact that like we can go to those places and have that desire to go like fight off the grizzly bears and on the mountain, but then you love it just as much as we. You know what I mean? Like we get to have the experience, and you get to yeah. That's the best part.
You just take us there.
Yeah, I think I really enjoy it because I quit hard drugs a long time ago. Like, and I I think I still have that in me. I need like,
an outlet,
an adrenaline rush. And so going on these dangerous backcountry adventures gives me that. And I'm like, yeah, I almost died. This is sick, you know? I mean, I don't want to die, obviously.
No one wants to die, but like
yeah, and then you see a grizzly bear and you're like, wow, that thing could kill me. This is cool. And it makes you feel more alive and appreciate the little things in life. And you come back home and you're like, I made it. And
I didn't die to the grizzly bear.
And I have a cool story to tell. I crossed a river and I almost drowned, you know? So, yeah, I don't know. It makes me feel alive. I think I like it.
That's the vibe. Yeah, I'll let you talk, Natasha.
Hello, is this on still?
Mic check.
Also, if you can hear my stomach rumbling, I'm so sorry. Your question was like intentionality and distribution, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I don't know. I feel like the space is so weird and new. Like,
Yeah.
how do you think about kind of all of that?
Cool.
Like being intentional or experimental and
All of it. Yeah. So it's interesting because like before I got here, I was very into doing like print drops, and I gamified them pretty much like without in the most basic way, like an NFT drop, like technology notwithstanding. Like I did what I could, and like it was really fun. So I was used to doing like 2 drops a month. Like let's do it like this, and like having the scarcity and having the hype and the FOMO. Like I literally made a living off of that. So like I knew how to do it, but I was like, I don't want to just do the same thing I did before in crypto. Like I have no interest in just doing what I did and getting paid in a different way. Like that is not what I want to do. I burnt myself out on prints. I was like, how do I make this different? How do I make it fun? And that's when I really started realizing, like, because the space is all over the place, like, I was like, oh, like, I actually can tell a story and people will read it. Like, on Instagram, they don't even read, like, oh, everything is on sale and the whole world is on fire. Just go, like, rob my, like, website. They would be like, cool piece. Like, they don't read anything. So it's like, it didn't make a difference if I was like, oh, like, I literally finished this piece, like, in tears, crying. Like, people just don't care. But I was like, oh, actually, like, it seems like people on Twitter do. Let me, like, start telling my story a little bit. And I was like, oh, this is actually really interesting. So then it became like, how do I make everything, like, how do I make a collection of things? Or just like, how do I kind of make something out of what has happened in my life, right? So like the one-of-ones don't really necessarily have a story. They're just like pieces I think are dope and like my best work. And sometimes I've made pieces that I think are some of my best work and there's no real like, oh, like I made this feeling this way. No, it's just, this is dope and I had it in my mind and I made it. You know, like my super genesis was exactly that. I made the piece in 15 minutes. I knew exactly what it wanted to look like and it was exactly what ended up happening and it was great. There's no story behind it. It was just dope, you know, but like, and that's fine. But like, I really like want just like what I do to either be like best work or intentional. That's kind of how I feel. But when I started putting together like the pieces in my head, I was like, I actually do have a lot of pieces I've made because of like music or emotions or things I've been through. Like, how could I like tell a story, like a bigger story about this? And then that's when I started thinking about releasing a collection. And I did in August called
and you crushed it.
One Night in August. Yeah. And everything.
Let's not be humble here.
So I put it in 3 phases and it was supposed to be like, if you've never heard the phrase, like every emotion has a beginning, middle, and an end. I did it that way. So like there was the beginning, the middle, and the end. I did it in 3 phases. Every phase sold out pretty quickly. I was very stoked about it.
I just set an alarm.
Yeah. Yeah, do you set an alarm? Yeah, it was quick, but it was cool because it was like, even if you just like the art at the baseline, it's a pretty picture, whatever, great. But if you really want to hear the story, I like put a lot of heart and soul into writing about each piece. And like, it's all there in the metadata. There's a playlist for the collection. It's only shared with the people who can find the metadata, which hopefully is everyone. Hopefully know how to do
5% of the
at this
people.
point. 2% know how to find it. But it's just like, to me, like I'm at the point in the space in my own place where I'm like, I want to do things intentionally and have fun with it. So it's like now what I'm doing, like after One Night in August, I was like, okay, like that was cool. Like, how do I do things that are cooler? I started working on like some dynamic pieces and like, shout out Transient Labs. I adore you. Like I love them. And like, we've been working on some stuff. And like, it's cool. Cause it's like, how does my art move without it like actually being animated? It's like, it moves by code. And like, I'm working on a piece now and it's got like 14 different elements to it, and it changes based on like your local time on the day of the week, and it only goes back to the original after a week has passed. It's really dope. You know, it took me like 3 weeks, 4 weeks to make it, but it's just like, that's the kind of stuff that I couldn't do before. I couldn't make something animated by code on Instagram. There was no way, it's like, I couldn't do things like that. I couldn't do like, I'm doing like an open edition drop pretty soon. It's like, I couldn't do a randomized like open edition print. The closest thing is like a mystery bag for $25. But like, I've done that. And those are just prints that sit in my office. It's like, it's cooler to have like a story behind everything. So like when it comes to intentionality at this point, it's like I really feel like I've been able to marry the two things I love, which are like writing and storytelling and then art. And I'm like really into the fact that I can kind of do both, and it's like accepted and people care about it. It's not like, ew, you're weird, why are you keep talking about this? Which is nice. And I think in the sense of distribution, I've really only ever played around on Ether or with Ether. I don't really know too much about Tez, and I mean like Soul, yeah, cool, but like every time I've tried to get on Tez, like something has blown up either in my life or with Tezo. So I'm like, okay, I think I need to like stay away. Like this is an omen. I'm not supposed to be on Tez. But it seems cool. I mean, like, I don't know, my boyfriend collects on Tez. He likes Tez. Like it's interesting. It's just like I haven't really had the ability to like look into it. But if I did, I'd want it to be like something that I couldn't do on ETH. That's kind of how I want to do it. Not just like, oh, here's my work now on Tezos.
So really quick, just from my perspective on editions and distribution, I think you all can do whatever the fuck you want. Like, like
Amen.
I think like it doesn't really matter. Like whatever anybody wants to do is like, we can all decide whether we want to buy it or not. Like, some people don't care and some people do. I think that intention means everything. So like if there's intention to it, then like, okay. Like there are like some people that like mint way too much and it's like, okay, like stop. But like overall, if you want to mint a bunch of stuff, as long as it's not like oversaturation, like NBA Top Shot did.
Shout out.
Yeah.
As much as you want, but like maybe not that much.
Yeah, just like don't go like to that, like in terms of just like maybe just like growth and like, increase percentage wise, like don't do that. But like but also what I think is really cool about like Web3 and crypto is you could be anonymous, and like as long as like you're not, there are some people that do the same kind of shit and they're like very obvious that like they're making from different accounts, but like you could have two separate accounts and no one would ever know if that account was anonymous, and like you could fuck around and do whatever you wanted on there, and like as long as it wasn't similar to what you were doing, you could just do it and like nobody would ever know. And like
maybe I'm shilling you in DMs.
I'm just
in another account.
Like there were some people, like I'm not just saying it could be on Ethereum, but like obviously there were people on Tezos, and there were like prominent artists that like didn't really tell people they were on it, and like Tyler Hobbs is a recent example. So they found Tyler Hobbs's wallet, and there was a piece that came out pre-Fidenza that was the Fidenza colors, and it sold for 42,000 Tez like a month ago. Yeah. And it was just like, he didn't tell anybody. Nobody knew. Somebody sleuthed and found it. But the point is like, you can be anonymous and do all these things and fuck around if you want to. So I feel like you want to have intention like on your account and stuff like that you're doing, like maybe your photography account, like fine, whatever. But like, don't let it hinder your creativity either. Like, so I think do what you want. But yeah, that's just me.
Yeah, I think also it's okay to not sell everything and have some unsold work. I think a lot of artists really stress out about that. Personally, I don't really care. I think it's nice to have a range, like price-wise. Like I have stuff on Tez. I have some unsold pieces in my minimalist collection. I have one piece left on Foundation, and I might burn them at some point. I'm not there yet, but right now I'm just like, what if like somebody buys a piece, talks about it, and then it just sells out? Because that happens quite a bit. Like sometimes I didn't sell for 2 months, and then boom, I sold like 10 pieces all at once. So I don't know. I think like being patient and just like believing in yourself and your work is kind of important as well.
Yeah, I think on that too, like I completely agree with what you're saying, and I think that this is a new space. We don't really like, there's not like a roadmap of this is how you do things. And like part of what makes this space great is that you can experiment and try whatever you want to try and see what happens. Like, I think like you said, like if you believe in yourself and your art, like do what you want to do what you feel called to do. And I feel like kind of how you drop your art is also an artistic expression. Like how Jay has it one way that he likes to do it, and that's like his artistic expression, which I think is beautiful. And like we all have the way that we want to do it based on how we exist in the world, which is also art. So I don't know.
So I think like you did a really cool thing with the film collection where you said, hey, this is totally different style, different, I'm gonna do it. I think you priced it pretty competitive.
Yeah, I priced it a lot lower than my one-on-ones.
Yeah,
because it was like, for me it was fun.
And I thought that was like a great way to do it. We picked up one we loved because it was just like this real scenic landscape vibe, bunch of green, nice purple flowers and stuff, but it was like completely different than, you know, what you had done before.
Yeah.
One thing that's interesting with you, kind of want to circle back, is the photography modeling world, I feel like is kind of dominated by male photographers. And one of the things I like really respect and like about what you do is how you handle yourself with your models. But like, how does that feel from a female perspective as like, you know, how do you feel like it's different shooting models from the female perspective that you provide versus like the male dominated gaze that kind of has dominated that industry forever?
So it's a big conversation because it's something that I talk about a lot on social media. I'm very vocal about it. I try not to be too vocal because I don't want to offend people. I like to keep the peace. Because I am a woman and I photograph women nude or semi-nude or whatever, from my perspective, like I was saying before, like the girls will ask me to do those things, and that's kind of why I fell into it. It's not because what I was always like, oh, I want to shoot nudes of women. Like that's not. I liked photography and I happened to be around beautiful women and they wanted to shoot nudes. So that's kind of how it evolved. And I think that, how do I say this without being... I've heard a lot of horror stories. Like,
always edit something out if we have to.
Yes. I mean,
this isn't live stream, so we can.
It's fine, but like I've heard a lot of horror stories because I am this safe space for these women. So when they've shot nudes before, maybe with male photographers in the past, people have stories, and I hear all of them because it is a vulnerable space.
Men are dogs.
It's a vulnerable place to be when you're nude in front of a camera. So like girls will open up to me, like we bond, we become close really fast because I'm like, I feel for these women and I want to be able to let them, like, help them express themselves in that way in a safe place. So when I hear these stories, it kind of fuels me to keep going in a way because it's like, oh, there is a need for someone like me. Like this is needed. Helping these girls feel good in their skin, feel comfortable, feel beautiful, feel empowered is needed because there's just a story that I was reading last night, and there's a specific photographer who I have friends who have told me stories about this person, and he shoots a lot of celebrities and a lot of like big names, and people will deny it because of who he is, and they'll work with him. And there's things like that everywhere. And I don't think that all male photographers are bad by any means. I think there's some amazing ones who shoot nudes, and that's totally fine. But I just feel the need for it. And I feel like coming from a woman's perspective artistically, I'm not looking at them in a sexual way at all when I'm shooting them. It's all about like, how can I make them look and feel the most beautiful? And like, how can I, if it's just a picture of them, or like, how can I put them in these surroundings and make it feel like a mood or something, you know? So I think whereas a lot of men shoot from a sexual gaze because that's the way men's brains are wired, it's not like a bad thing that that's the way their brains work. But when you're involving women and it's such a vulnerable thing, like, I think that a lot of men don't understand women from that perspective. So like being a woman and photographing women in that way is just a different thing to me. Like I look at it as a piece of art, like, wow, this is beautiful. She looks beautiful in this environment, not a sexual thing at all.
Yeah, I mean, your photography is the first nude photography I've ever really collected, and it was because of bonding with you and talking about this whole process, because I didn't really feel like super comfortable buying nudes from dudes. Like, I'm married, happy, like I pick out art with Mrs. D's, and I'm just like not trying to buy like overly sexualized stuff. Yeah. It's not our vibe. But then when we talk to you, it's like, oh, this is like very soft and intimate and like wholesome.
Yeah.
In a way.
And like for me, I come from a background, like my dad was a Baptist minister my whole life, super religious, super conservative. I was told like, I didn't wear 2-piece bathing suits when I was a kid. Like I couldn't do that. I couldn't like wear certain clothing and I had to dress a certain way. And like, I think growing up and realizing that that's kind of all bullshit and we should be able to do whatever the fuck we want to do. Like, then these girls ask me to shoot nudes. It almost feels like a rebellion against that. And it's feel like, for me, it's like a freedom thing. Like, I'm like, oh, we're free. We can do whatever we want. Like, also think about like men who post shirtless photos all the time. And then like a woman posts a shirtless photo and her nipples showing and it's a whole thing. So to me, it's more like to destigmatize it as well. And to kind of rebel against that idea that like, why can't women show their nipples? Why can men show their nipples? And it's like, my account on Instagram is censored completely because I post, and I don't even post nude, like I censor everything, but like they shadow ban me. Like I'm not allowed to show my work because women's bodies are bad to look at apparently. So for me, it's kind of a rebellion, a freedom thing. I don't know.
I love it.
I actually got a warning on Instagram sharing you and Anita's pieces from the New York exhibition.
You get warnings from just sharing it?
Yeah, I shared. Well, I mean, I took a photo of her piece and Anita's, right? From the comp stomp. Yeah. And so, they deleted it and I got a warning that they were going to shut down my account or something. And I was like, whoa, I can't imagine what you guys are going through. Like, I'm just sharing your work, you know?
How does that feel as an artist that like you could get kind of deplatformed by Instagram? Like, do you get worried about that?
Yeah, I definitely do think about it, and it affects what I post. Thankfully, Twitter, I don't think they'll delete your account. They'll shadow ban you, but like they're not going to delete your account.
There's ways, but I don't think for nudes.
Well, if you put it in your profile picture or your banner. Yeah.
Not for like nude photography. I don't think they'll ban you.
I have friends posting
or profile picture. They will.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I had a friend. Her name is Erica Simone. Sorry, yeah. My friend Erica Simone, she nude photographer. She had herself from her collection in her banner, and like a couple days into Elon's takeover, he like suspended her permanently, and it was just like, oh shit. Thankfully, she knew she's friends with him, and he undid it. So
she's friends with Elon.
But that's crazy though, because I have friends doing
sorry Erica, I doxed you.
I have friends like posting OnlyFans
it's the
stuff.
Banner. If it's in the banner,
No, in the banner. If it's in the banner,
I see.
it was.
I got a warning when I first started my Twitter.
Yeah, you just put
But it's also like, why? I get it. Like, I guess there's kids and stuff, and they don't need to see. But like at the same time, if kids were to see, like I went to a nude beach in Hawaii, and there's kids running around, and there's naked people everywhere, and it's not sexualized. It's just everyone's just chilling, and I don't see why that's a problem.
Like, what kind of a kid would be on Twitter anyway? Like, I don't.
Like,
right?
There's way worse things on Twitter.
Really, there's a lot of kids on Twitter. Well, I would find that so boring.
I feel like they're all on TikTok now.
Sports. Like,
oh, okay, yeah, I'm not into that.
Like
so I wouldn't know.
Video games, like it's just more like, you know, when you're a kid, especially like with the ADD and ADHD as an adult with ADHD, you go down rabbit holes, and so it's like you go on Twitter and like I might be looking at the sports news or a video game thing or whatever, but I might click on something else from that account that like they share it as I'm scrolling through. And then I go to another account. It's kind of like you just go down and you kind of just start clicking stuff if you're like, I don't know. It's just, it's a thing. So it's like, it's very possible to like see those things, but I still think like, why should that matter? I don't know.
But I think also like when we talk about more about like what you said, Dee, is about like it is a male dominated field. I think a lot of the photography you would see is like from the male gaze, and in a lot of ways like it's not something like what Meg is shooting. It's not something that is like delicate and beautiful and elegant like you said. Like I think that like the majority of it like it makes sense, but that's why like we need to clone Meg 100 times.
Yeah, how do we get more Megs?
More Meg? When more Meg? Like, no, seriously though.
I think it's also a lot about intention. I just feel like your intention when you photograph these women is empowerment, and not just empowerment and a feeling of freedom that you give to them, but also that the act of making art with them gives to you. So it kind of goes both ways. Like you're creating art from the female perspective, also for your own like feeling of empowerment, rebellion, freedom. So it's kind of this like joint, you know. I don't know. I think it's great.
Yeah. I don't know. It's fun. I like doing it.
No, I think it's good to bring up. I think it's something that I like to bring up when it's recorded because it's I don't know, important for collectors to think about, especially in this space. Like I don't see very many other Megs or Ericas around. Maybe I don't know them, or maybe you need to introduce me to more of them.
There's Anita.
Yes.
I brought Anita in for that.
We have
reason.
Anita coming in a couple hours.
Someone else, yeah. Oops. But yeah.
Yeah. I have a topic list here. I'm gonna pull up and just go into 1 second. Oh yeah. So kind of a lighthearted question. How do you guys travel with equipment? And we found out traveling with this is the first time Weisha's ever brought 6 cases worth of stuff on a plane. Like, how do you travel around with equipment, and how do you balance between making sure you have the right gear for what you're trying to do without breaking your back and, traveling across the world and hoping that stuff doesn't get stolen and all that stuff?
I got a good chiropractor. I just carry heavy shit. Like, I just figure it out. For me, I'm like, I have a Pelican case, a big one that has like my underwater housing, which now is coming with me everywhere. I don't get to bring my long freediving fins with me everywhere because there's just I'll bring them on dive trips. And I bring short fins with me. And then I bring I have 2 film cameras and a digital camera and a bunch of lenses. And then I have my clothes and stuff, and I'm traveling full time. So I just live out of those suitcases and I figure out how to do it.
300 pounds of suitcases.
You bring your fins everywhere?
Yeah.
No, just my Puffco.
I don't even actually have that much gear. I've had people in my own career field of like outdoor photography make fun of me for years for the lack of gear I have. I really think less is more. It's not about having all the options in the world. It's about using your feet to zoom. And as long as I can cover all the perspectives, because I think that different shots, different landscapes, different scenes call for different, perspectives on a landscape. Like, do I feel small here? Do I feel free here? Do I feel like, you know what I mean? Like, because again, how are you imposing the way that something makes you feel into the art and being able to show that through the photo? So as long as I have the perspectives covered, I don't really need much gear. So I have an underwater housing, I have a drone, I have a very, very long lens and a very, very wide lens. That's it. That's all the gear I have. So it really just goes on my back, and I travel with like a pretty small backpack with just that in it, because I feel like really less is more. I don't have a whole bunch of gear.
Underwater housing seems critical. Do you have any underwater housing?
I do have one, but I was just telling her yesterday, I don't know how to fucking use it.
That's probably scary.
So
scary.
We're gonna go swim with sharks, and I'm gonna teach her.
Maybe try at the pool.
Yeah, we're gonna. Yeah. I am terrified of sharks, and I said I would be willing to try.
So hot tub.
So we'll see in the hot tub.
Use the hot tub.
Wait,
underwater housing in the hot tub. Yet.
What do you want to shoot with? What do you want to shoot in the hot tub, Jay? That's
just to be clear, for anyone that listens to this, underwater housing is gear for your camera. It is not a house.
Yes.
I want to make that very clear, because I've been way too high.
I thought that was clear, but thank you.
No, I want to make that clear, because like, like this guy over here totally thought like underwater housing. Like, are they sitting? Really?
How long are they in that
house?
Not today.
For? Not today, to be clear.
Under the sea.
In regards to the gear, I think my biggest struggle is actually my camping, hiking gear. Because a lot of photos I take are very deep in the backcountry, so I have to carry about like 60 pounds of gear on my back for, 25, 30 kilometers sometimes. And that's like half my body weight. So I have to be careful with my camera gear, because I'm bringing food for like a week sometimes, and my tent and all this stuff. So that's why I have a mirrorless camera. However, shooting Northern Lights made me realize I needed a second camera, because I missed out on so many really, really insane shots because I was shooting a time lapse, like in a particular like location, and then it moves really quickly sometimes. And I didn't want to stop my time lapse because it was still looking good. It was just like exploding there instead. So if I had 2 cameras, I would have been able to take single shots here. And so I think it depends what you shoot. And for me, I think I would have that need, but I try to keep it to a minimum. And luckily with my mirrorless camera, like the lenses are pretty small. So I can get away with like having like a zoom lens, like a portrait one, and then the wide angle, and then I have my drone. So it's already like a lot. Plus my very heavy, well, kind of heavy tripod, because it needs to be very stable in case there's like some wind when I'm shooting long exposure. So yeah, it is tricky. When I went to Norway, I overpacked a bit because I didn't know what I was gonna do. Right, I was going with the flow, and so it was very inconvenient to travel with it. I think you have to adjust the way you travel. Sometimes I had to rent a car, and yeah, you run the risk of getting your gear stolen. But in Canada, I think you have that in the US. There's front row insurance, and so it's like a camera gear insurance company. I don't know if they do anything else, but so basically all my gear, my laptop, my cell phones are covered. And Jenna actually claimed, and they're super chill with it. I think she broke like her camera and her lens, and they replaced it pretty quickly. So I have that peace of mind
faith
at least.
that if it does,
yeah. What I'm concerned with is somebody stealing my memory card, my SD card. So yeah, that's my only concern really.
I also put air tags in each bag that I travel with. Like I'm very
yes.
I argue. So like in Asia, they have a carry-on allowance where like you can only weigh a certain amount, and my camera bag is like 35 pounds or something crazy. And I just argue with people. I'm really nice about it, but I'm like, this is worth a lot of money. Like I'm not checking this. And they're like, well, it won't fit. And I'm like, well, it needs to go in a closet somewhere because I'm not like, it's just not happening. And I just have to be that person. Luckily, people in Asia are very nice and they don't argue very much. They just kind of let you win. From my experience. So I've gotten lucky in a lot of ways, but I also end up leaving stuff some places and then having them ship. Like I left my housing in Mississippi at my aunt's house for a while because I was going to be in the middle of America, and then I had her ship it to Hawaii later. So like that kind of stuff. I try to not bring as much stuff if I don't have to, but when you're traveling full time, you don't really have a home base to leave stuff. So you kind of have to like, I don't know. It's tough.
That's why I bought a van, actually. I mean, I'm limited to like Canada, the US, I mean, the Americas, but I feel like it's so much more convenient because I can have everything in my van, and I just don't need to stress out about it. It's just there. Like whatever I need, I'll just like take it out. So it's easier that way, I think.
Is it hard to like travel to Miami with the van? Like you just leave the van in Canada?
Oh, I left it in Calgary.
Yeah, you didn't drive.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
I did, like last year I drove pretty far to like to LA. Yeah. And it was a trip. It was very expensive. Very, very expensive. So yeah, I don't know if I would do that too often. I mean, I'm going to try, but take it a bit more slow and shoot more along the way. Yeah.
I have a question about the bear market we're going through right now. So it's kind of a slower time. Prices are down across the board. Are you doing anything in particular different than you were last year in terms of like creating, or like I wrote the question down as something along the lines of like, what seeds are you planning right now that you hope to sow in the next bear market or bull market? Like what seeds are you planning in a bear market to, harvest in a bull market?
Okay, I have this thing and I've been waiting to say it for the right moment. This is the right moment. I think if you're thriving in the bear market, you are a swamp monster. I'm a self-proclaimed swamp monster. Like you're like the underground people in Futurama. Like you are just making it happen. And I think that that's like, okay. To answer your question, I don't really think that I kind of had a few sales here and there, but I like wasn't comfortable and confident in myself. Like when things were really popping off, like I was like, oh, I'm not good enough. Like I would look at someone like Ryan Koopmans, who's like an incredible animator, and I'd be like, I can't drop anything on Super Rare. Like this is so much better than me. And
I can't drop anything on Super Rare because this is one artist.
I had to do so much self-work when I first got into the space because like I genuinely thought that. I was like, there's no way that I can be like a good artist if like this exists. And that's like saying that like, like upside down like pineapple cake exists, so like I can't like chocolate. It's like, what? Like those are so different. Like you're allowed to enjoy diversity in different things. But like I think, the other part is like, what seeds are you trying to sow? The way I'm kind of looking at it is like consistency. Like I am, like I said, a self-proclaimed swamp monster, and like don't really care that ETH is at like $1,200. Like I don't really care. I'm going to keep minting. And that's one of the things that I see from a lot of the artists that like popped off like in the bull market. Like their thought is like, well, why would I mint something right now? Like, I really don't, like, I don't want to. And I'm like, I'm a swamp monster, so I'm cool with it. And I just keep going, you know? But like, in a way, I'm kind of like grateful that I didn't have that, because now I'm like able to kind of like build in this way that's like, whoever's here is like really here, right? Because the stuff that I did kind of drop like pretty much like right before stuff like really took a nosedive, it was a lot of degens and a lot of flippers, like DM me for better price people, you know, they're trying
DM for better price.
Yeah, that's like,
can I get 10% off? I'll send the offer right now.
Literally. And like it was like, I didn't like it. And like
fucking collectors,
my friends that I'll talk to from like early, like they're like, that was my collector base. Like, that's what they say. They're like, my collector base was just people who wanted, they called themselves investors. They wanted a product. And it's like, artists are not head of product at like a huge company. Like, the word roadmap comes from product in corporate. Like, we have to identify that. Like, artists are not products. And I think that like, I'm glad I don't have to reshape the way that I feel about my work because of like the way that people felt in the bull market, right? So it's like the seeds I'm kind of trying to sow are like, I want to get as many people who are like down for it, like, and like my art as possible now. So when things really do come back, it's like, okay, like this is really like what I'm about. And it's like, it's kind of solidified. Like, I feel like I'm kind of building a foundation to do cool, intentional, innovative things. And it's like, how do I continue doing that using the technology to work with me to make my art something different and something that I've never been able to do before? So yeah, I don't know. Like, that's kind of what I'm trying to go for.
Oh, that.
What was the question again?
So in this bear market we're going through, what seeds are you planning to?
I think it's interesting. I think if anything, it's like the right time to build, to strengthen connections, and to network, which is why I came here partly. And so I think I have a different kind of approach now, you know, like I went to these NFT events initially and I was like, yay, vibing with the homies, partying, and like I'm 41, I don't really like partying anymore, you know what I mean? So I was like forcing myself, and now I'm just like, oh, I want to have a fucking Buddha bowl with a bunch of collectors I vibe with and some homies, you know, like, and so I think it just kind of made everything more chill. I find kind of like what it was in the beginning when I joined the space. We were all homies. Mm-hmm. There wasn't that extra pressure to perform all the time. And I think that's very unrealistic. I know there's a lot of collectors who, and I can understand, you know, you invest in some artists that are selling for a lot of ETH. But when the bear market hits, like everyone, we need to pay our bills still, you know? So I think changing your strategy, but also not putting too much pressure on yourself is important. And this is something I wish I did a bit more. It kind of drops all my other income streams, well, most of them. And I really kind of regretted doing that because now I'm kind of forced to be on Twitter 24/7. And I don't have the luxury of like choosing, right? I had some pretty cool, like some good passive income streams before from my food blogging. And I don't have that anymore. And so I think it's important to not neglect any income source that you have. And like NFTs get really exciting, but it's very unpredictable. You know, you can crush it like for a couple months and then nobody buys your pieces for a couple months. And so I think it's just like finding the right balance between like Web 2 and Web 3. At least for me, that's my perspective, obviously. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think like the bear market is going to be like beneficial for those who are working on building those genuine connections. Yeah, I think it's really important that people have multiple income streams that are hopefully not correlated, because when one thing goes down, you still have something else. And, you know, maybe you have that income stream, you can buy dips or buy ETH or whatever when it's cheap, and then maybe ride the wave back up again. Definitely something that is good advice.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's interesting because I moved out of LA where I lived for 9 years in the middle of May, and it's now December. It's been about 6 months.
You sold the top on LA.
What?
You sold the top on LA. It was before the implosions.
Yeah,
like, I'm
and
out.
Like whenever I was like doing really well, like during the bull market, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna like travel the world and keep creating, and like I'm gonna do all this stuff. And I was just like, in my mind, I was like, I just want to do NFTs. I don't really want to do this other stuff anymore. Like I was kind of like, I don't want to work for clients. I don't want whatever. So then I left, and then like the market crashed. Like I remember when I was putting all my stuff into storage, the market dipped really low, and I was like, what am I doing? Am I making a mistake? Like, I had this moment where I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Are you making a mistake? Should you, like, I was fine, but I was also like, I've never done this before. I've been in this place for 9 years. Now I'm taking this huge risk. And then the market dropped, and I was like, okay. And I was like, honestly, like, I'm fine. Like, it's not like I needed to make a bunch of money to be okay. I was like, I'm fine for a little bit. So I'm just going to like go and vibe and like see what happens. And so I did that. And I went to some places I always wanted to go. And then I like created along the way, just captured things. And I was like, okay, cool. So it's been a journey for me. And then other work started picking up because naturally I would divert my attention elsewhere because there would be opportunities there. So I would divert my attention there, and then I would get work in other ways. And now I'm actually doing a lot more work outside of Web3, but I'm still following the space. I'm still minting as I can. I'm just busy with other work, which I'm really grateful for. I'm so grateful that I can diversify and do different things. But in the back of my mind the whole time, I'm like, NFTs, you know, I'm like, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do? So I'm always like planning, and I have like ideas of things that I want to release and different ways to kind of make the minting experience more fun. So I'm planning a few things, and I'm in the back behind the scenes, like working on things, and I'm able to kind of still make money doing other things. So there's no stress, there's no pressure for me to like be making money in NFTs, which I think is great. I think keeping it fun and not making it feel like, oh, I have to pay my bills, I have to do this, makes it more, you get to be more creative and not feel stressed about it, and release when you feel inspired to release things. And like, yeah, so I'm just grateful that I have that, and I've built a career outside of NFTs, but I also am excited for the future of it because I do believe in NFTs. I believe in ETH. I think everything's going to eventually turn up and go back up. And so why not, you know, continue minting, continue it. Like, to me, I have fun in the space. Like, I come on Twitter because I enjoy connecting with people. I'm like just vibing and having a good time. And I'm like, I've made so many amazing friends through this space that it's just something I'm committed to long-term regardless. But I'm, you know, also doing other things. So I don't know. It's just, for me, it's just fun. And I think things will turn around and go up. And so I'm just committed to keep going either way. Yeah.
So diversify is a good answer. That's always a good answer. My answer would be adapt. So continue to make art, continue to make NFTs your sole priority if that's what you love and that's what you want to keep doing for a career. That's what I want to keep doing. But your pieces aren't, you know, selling for all-time highs, and there aren't collectors coming in every day trying to scoop up art. You know what I mean? It's just not the same in the bear market. But does that mean that you have to fall back on like old jobs or old income streams or whatever? Not necessarily. Just adapt the art and the drive that you have. Like, use the drive you have to keep making art. Just adapt the delivery. You know what I mean? Make something unique. Make something that fills a void. Just don't make it so expensive. Make it accessible, and don't try to make it, you know, compete with your old work. So Crowns for me was my adaptation to the bear market. It was like I wanted something that wasn't just an edition, wasn't a new one of one, because I heard people saying adapt. Like, we have to change our strategy during these, you know, trying times. And the most common response I saw was they would just lower their prices. It would be like, adapt. Okay, it's now 5 ETH off. You know what I mean? And like,
adapt.
That's not really like
Dutch auction.
That's not. Yeah, exactly.
Adapting.
Like, it feels like that's not adaptation to me. That's like, fuck, I'm broke. Like,
I'm adapting.
Somebody pay me, please. Like, you know what I mean? So I didn't like that response as much, and so I was like, okay, let me just keep all my windows the same. Just let them chill. Don't panic and start lowering prices. Just come up with something that fills a void, that is super accessible, that broadens your collector base. It turns fellow friends and artists into collectors potentially, because they've always liked your work but haven't ever been able to afford it. Like, I don't know, do something that opens your work to more people, because there are way more people who can, you know, who can take part in your art who are unaffected by the bear market at accessible prices than like the top 1% who still care about collecting despite the current market. So don't focus as much on that, you know. Just shift your sales to something else, something sustainable when everybody's down, you know.
Yeah, I think that's important. Like, I like the additions. I wasn't too sold on them initially, but I think for me it really allowed me to, like you said, Jay, like broaden my collector base and have like a direct access to contact people that I've never spoken to before. that are collectors that would be interested in one-of-ones. And so when I had a drop for my minimalist work, I contacted how much is it, like 120 edition collectors that I had, and it allowed me to sell like a few pieces. And so I think like it could be a good strategy to experiment with like different types of drops, like editions and stuff, and open editions as well. Like I was surprised to mint an open edition during a bear market and to kind of do well still. But that being said, like I didn't just drop it. I contacted a lot of people, and I think you still have to put in a lot of work, if not like a bit more. But there is a way to navigate through that, I think. And just keep an open mind and keep talking to people, I guess.
So I'm I'm an artist, but not like you guys are like in the thick of it. I'm managing artists and like doing other stuff, but like I just coming from a sales background and whatnot, and just working with artists, like you got to sell yourself, right? And so I think right now, just based on like how, like if you look at some of the most successful people and like investors and whomever in this space, they've been around. Like they were doing stuff maybe the last bear market. A lot of them, like a lot of people that have been around and building are now successful. And I feel like when people are not looking as much, is a great opportunity to make like genuine connections with people. And you don't have many people like in line or in your lane trying to like garner that attention. So like this is the prime time. It's like you might not sell to those people now, but like meet those people, like reach out. And it's like Web3 has given us that opportunity to like level the playing field with so many random people. Like look at so many people on Deez's spaces and stuff like that, and like just some of the celebrities that'll like come in and listen to a space.
Not the Scottie Pippen story.
No, that's I mean, the Bulls are Bulls, but like but yeah, no, I definitely think though that like it's a really good time to like network, but also like there's two thoughts I've said this to people, but it's just food for thought. Like if you need to do work and you can't this isn't sustainable, there's no shame. Like if you got to go do other stuff, go do other stuff. But like what's really cool is there's so many people sitting on the sidelines right now wondering what the hell NFTs are. You could go to so many different brands and start that as your conversation. You may not ever even do an NFT, but like you could just tell them what you're doing, and it's an easy way to get in with that brand, and maybe you get more work. And it's just like what we don't realize sometimes is we have so much knowledge that you have and like experience that you can share and monetize in some way, in a genuine way that you feel good about, right? Like, and that's what we need to be doing more of. And it's like, in turn, we're kind of growing and being stewards for the space. So
yeah, totally. I think, definitely not as an artist side, but like one thing that I've kind of been saying to people during this time in general is, we kind of got this really weird opportunity to be early to something one more time that I didn't really think we were going to get. And so like having been in crypto for a while now, like this last bull run felt different. And I was like, you might not really have a chance to be like super early to all this at this point, because so many major brands were doing things and so many large companies and like, fucking multiple basketball stadiums are sponsored by crypto companies. Shout out to FTX Arena, down here in
Crypto.com arena.
Yeah. And I think like it's this really interesting opportunity, and I haven't really thought about it from the art side as much, because I think about it much more from like the building companies and protocol side of it. But you definitely have like a really unique opportunity to be early. And if you are able and fortunate enough to continue to spend time in like planting seeds, like if things hadn't have gone this way, you might not have had that opportunity. And now in a few years, like hopefully, like you're saying, when things are better, looking back on it, I think a lot of people, like everyone sitting on this couch, will be very thankful that they still came to Art Basel and did all these things, because it'll be worth it in the long run.
Also, we're coming for you, Sammy. We're coming.
Yeah, and after this, we're flying to the Bahamas. We're going to find Sam.
I also think that like during this slower time, I've been able to develop other skills that I've been wanting to develop, like the underwater photography and the diving. Like I've been able to take the time because I feel like during the bull market, everything's just so like crazy and you're like the momentum of it. Like you just want to like be on Twitter 24/7 and be doing all this stuff. But I've been able to actually take time away to develop other skills to be able to create better art, which I think is cool too. So I think it takes a little bit of pressure off to let you kind of like refine and hone in on things, which is fun, and can kind of push you in a different direction or like let you explore a little more, which is cool.
I know. I totally agree with you. I started playing with AI art as well. I started watching more editing tutorials, something I didn't really have a chance to do when I was like always go, you know, shooting, minting all the time. So yeah, there's just different opportunities during the bear market.
Like, don't waste this time. Like what you should do what you shouldn't do right now is spend like 12 hours on Twitter saying GM and wag me. Like, you should go work on yourself, work on a diversified income stream, work on another skill, something.
Don't bring negative energy either.
Yeah.
There's a lot of spaces that like, and I'm not saying that they don't do a great job of bringing like content on there, like to some degree, but it's negative. And it's just like what it's doing is it's killing people's like morale and it's making people hate. And like that'll never win. Like sure, some people will say like, oh, maybe it's just not your cup of tea. Like hate will never win. So it's just like, I don't know.
No.
I'm not a lizard fan. I'm just not.
I also think go outside and touch grass, right? Like if you have emotions and hate inside of you, and don't just like immediately go to Twitter and dump all your shit on Twitter. Like it's not your diary.
People see it.
Yeah, it's not your diary. It's not your therapist. Like
when you rage delete it in 30 minutes and
Yeah,
it already got 5,000
Like,
impressions.
go
like,
outside, touch
people
grass, swim with a whale.
I see that so much though. People will just post salty tweets and then it's a matter of seconds or minutes and people remember that.
Oh.
And then it goes around in group chats and then your reputation is
Screenshot
done.
it. So, hey, did you see that one? That was a
exactly.
zinger.
And it's just like we all have those thoughts.
They
you know?
really feel that way?
Well, I have opinions on a lot of things and sometimes I express them, but I feel like it can always come back to bite you. And so you have to be a bit cautious, especially in such a small community, right? Like, and like you said, like, you know, there's a lot of negativity. And for me, for my own inner peace, I started just muting everyone who was like too salty and too negative. And it's a much more pleasant experience now. So,
you know, I've told people this before, like regardless of your, you know, opinions or situation in the current market, these people are your coworkers. Treat them like coworkers. Like your opinion doesn't matter when it negatively affects not only them, but literally you and everyone else around you. Like, you know what I mean? So yeah, definitely don't use this time to spread, you know, negativity about the space or other artists or anything like that. Like these are coworkers. Then
yeah, like
treat it like a business because it is.
Yeah, we're vibing, but like we are also working. And I think that like I also have like worked in the music industry and like that's a very common ploy. It's like I'll become your homie in quotes to like make you want to do things for me. And it's like this whole weird like bro fest, and not only dudes, but it's like this weird like let's be nice to each other type of thing so we can kind of like screw each other over. And that doesn't really happen here too much, but like we are all still working. So it's like, it's important to like be courteous, respectful, kind, cordial, you know? And it's just like, I think something I like to live by is like, we don't all have to like each other, but we do all have to love each other. And I think that like, that's just kind of the way it is. I think like the more we kind of see this as like, not like I am a robot and I want to be in like, I need to network kind of thing. Like that's lame, but like, you know, just vibing, but like respectfully.
Respectfully vibing. We are coming up on the top of the hour here. It is one. That was a very quick, like, couple hours.
A little quickie.
Thanks a million.
Thank you guys.
As they say.
I really appreciate the live vibe. I like to be able to just have a Twitter space, but in real life, it's kind of what it feels like in a way. Thank you guys for taking the time and hanging out with us.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
That was fun.
No,
for
it's
having
like
us.
we were gonna hang out, maybe have
you,
conversations like this anyway, but like not recorded. So like, why not record some and other people can be a fly on the
Go
wall.
buy a dick butt.
Go buy a dick butt. And then I gotta give out some tit badges right after this.
I want a dick butt because I want to live on an island, or I want to go to an island with you guys.
Gooch Island.
Island.
I want to go to there.
You need a dick butt. It really does.
I've seen it.
Thanks for listening to this Roundtable episode of We Do a Little with special guests Jay Toups, Meg Batson, Joelle LB, Natasha Chomko, and Sneakerdad. Check out the show notes for links to all of their works and websites. And if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite platforms. Thank you.